Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing 3 more chapters of Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. We're doing chapters 14, 15, and 16, really getting into part 2 here. In these chapters, Adolin fights a duel. Shallan and Co. run into a bit of a problem on their trip to the Shattered Plains, and Renarin Colin finds himself a sword master. I'm Data, and with me today is
Jamie,
Jack,
and Joe. That's right, everyone. Don't turn it off. Jamie's here.
We got the whole crew back. Everyone's happy. This will be a good one. Everyone, as opposed to the other ones, which I guess by implication we're not.
Yeah, I mean,
you've already listened to them at this point, so you can't un-listen to them.
Yeah, you listened. You can't unlisten.
So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin. So yeah, 3 chapters this time, and it's been a couple of weeks since we had something that wasn't mostly interludes, so we're getting back into the meat of it. What did you guys think of these 3 chapters? And I guess, Jamie, if you have opinions, particularly on the Parshendi stuff that we got during the interludes, feel free to throw that out too, since you missed those, and there was some interesting stuff in there.
Yeah, it was. So sorry, folks. Been unwell the last couple of weeks, so it's good to be back. Yeah, I liked the interludes, but yeah, definitely the chapters around Esh and I were really good, and it definitely puts the whole Parshendi in a different light, and sort of putting that with Jasnah and Shallan's thoughts on the whole thing is a bit different. So I thought that was really quite good to read. Some of the other ones I was like, and I can't remember their names, it's been a while, but I was like, this is really cool. I'm really interested. I'd love to hear more about this. And I'm sure that we will in some aspects, but I have no idea how this fits into the whole thing. The giant island that's actually beast of some sort. Again, words, can't really remember what I read, sorry.
It was a giant crab island. It's okay.
Big crab island. I mean, the whole idea, that's fascinating. And having all the cultures come together in one culture, and the fact that was a test was it's really cool, and I'd like to read more, but I have no idea how it's going to fit into the whole story. And kind of when I got to the end of the interlude, I was like, oh yeah, our people. I'd forgotten about you guys. It's been so long. It was good, but it's good to come back to our regular cast of characters and see where they've ended up. So I guess this week's chapters. So the duel was pretty intense, but pretty quick. Like, you sort of knew that Adolin was going to come in and make a point, but his point was made, like, definitely. I wouldn't want to be the other shard bearers, and yeah, that seems quite intense. So it'd be interesting to see how that happens in the next, so how that continues to happen with all the other high princes and bright lords and whoever they're deciding to challenge. I particularly look forward to Sadius's challenge, and I sort of wonder if Amaram will end up in that as well. The second chapter we read was, sorry, refresh my memory.
Shallan.
Okay, yes, because then we went back to Kaladin at the end. Yes.
Yep.
Shallan, yeah, things look a little dicey there. I guess the last lesson from Jasnah was really important. That's helping Shallan get by at this point. She's doing anything she can to make sure she's one step ahead of these guys. I loved how she used pattern to suss out what was going on. I love that she was kind of bold enough to go and just assign herself one of what she's calling a carriage. It was kind of bold, even though it's obviously not a nice environment to be in. And it was cool to get a little bit of a glimpse of her using some stormlight that she didn't even really know how she did it. So I'm kind of waiting for her to have that realization that her feet might be like looking better as well, because she definitely said they felt it, like it didn't feel like it hurt so much. I was like, ooh, that was cool to get a little bit of a glimpse into that. But hopefully they managed to get out of their current pickle safely. I'm sure that they will. She's realigned, what's his name, to Vlakov, or however you say it. So hopefully he's also willing to get her to her destination before he completely goes against her or decides to sell her to someone else or something like that.
Yeah, no, like good set of chapters. It was nice to see Aelin do something in this chapter. Watching him, like, I loved how he's just like, all right, I am not fucking around in this duel, and he just beat the shit out of the other dude, and everyone's just like, what the fuck was that? He's like, I won. It's like, it's just refreshing. It's like, okay, cool. Like the Alethi have all these games and these like facades and everything, and he's just like, no, fuck it, we're done with this shit. Let's just get it on. Let's just get on with it, and he did, and it was great. So, all right, points, Aelin. I'll give you that one. Yeah, not sure what to make of what's going on with Jasnah. Not Jasnah, Shallan. I keep doing that. We'll just, like bit of danger. I don't know. I get the feeling this might lead to them being discovered by people like the guards for the Shattered Plains, like Kaladin's things, but I could be wrong there. Who really knows where they're going? But then the Kaladin one was kind of curious because, like, all right, he's guarding Adolin. We know Adolin and Kaladin really don't like each other, and they're in like the training pit, which was like a cool enough concept. And then what's the deal with this dude that Kaladin bumps into? Like this Zahel, was that his name?
Yeah, Zahel.
Yeah, like I thought, okay, this guy seems a bit different because this guy also seems to come from the I'm not fucking around with any of these Alethi pretenses kind of routines. I'm like, okay, who are you now? I want to know more about you. You seem pretty interesting. Yeah, just it seems like an interesting new character. It's like, okay, where's this guy been? If he's been around the whole time, like Adolin seems to know him pretty well. Like,
yeah,
you seem like you seem like a bit of a spanner to throw into the works. Let's learn more about you, shall we?
Yeah, I agree. He's an intriguing character that we've just met. It sounds like he's going to be Renarin's like sword master, so maybe we'll see more of him.
Yeah, I mean that'll be nice. Good to see Renarin getting more into the thick of things. I'm surprised Kaladin doesn't seem to like Renarin either. Renarin's never come across as having like Adolin's arrogance or self-righteousness. So
right.
I mean, I know Kaladin doesn't like Light Eyes as a rule, but even so, it's kind of surprising that he hasn't seen anything of Renarin to dissuade that. I guess if considering he's guarding him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't know how much time he spent with any of them at this point, because Kaladin is rotating through this guard thing and also having to be in charge of like every other thing among his 1,000 bridgemen. So
yeah,
who knows
true.
at this point exactly how much time he spent with any individual.
And
it didn't even sound like they were guarding like Adolin and Renarin until that last section where Dalinar's like, oh, they will go after my family. I want them to have guards too.
Yeah, fair point.
And now they're going to take over guarding the king at some point. So who knows?
Yeah, Kaladin's got shit to do.
He does. See, that's a way to put it. Yep. I like when we get an interesting new character to. Who are you? What are you doing here? Because I agree. Yeah. It seems to call him out as like something's up with this guy.
Yeah.
These were fun chapters. The Kaladin duel, the Adolin duel, I think we've all said like was over very quickly. He's not messing around. It's good to see him like being involved to the extent of like he's kind of nervous at first. You don't know how it's gonna go, and then he just decides like I'm just gonna get the blade. I'm not gonna worry about etiquette. And it's also interesting to me that like they have such a kind of like unspoken code about how these duels are supposed to go, that when he just kind of bashes his way through, they're kind of like, what are you doing? And he's like, did I break any rules? And so it's definitely interesting to see. And I'm excited to, well, I don't know how much time can we spend with Adolin doing duel after duel. I would imagine that going forward, these duels will probably just be done in the background unless he actually does end up dueling Sadeas. Because I can't imagine we're going to spend a ton of time on these things. We got that one probably just to kind of tell us, hey, this is how these are going. So, like I said, I don't imagine we're going to spend a ton of time on that in the future. So it was good to get this perspective of like kind of how Adolin's mindset has changed toward this. It's like, okay, we're going to win. We're going to get these shard blades and played, and we're going to do what my dad thinks and get all these princes to get on our side. If we have to do it by force, we have to do it by force or whatever. So I don't think based on what it sounds like we're leading up to, they may not have time to get through this whole dueling process if they only have a certain limited amount of days. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. But anyway, so we've got that, and then we've got Shallan kind of like learning a little bit more of how to use her authority in a way that actually means something to the people around her. We already didn't like the slaver guy, so it's no surprise that he's kind of trying to take advantage of her. So
I think Dak loves Crazy Vaclav. What are you talking about?
Oh, do you? Dude, Dak, is that true? Do you love Crazy Vaclav?
I mean, only for his propensity that gives me Simpsons memes. Beyond that, it's like
sure.
This is kind of a wacky dude who's just like, he's fine for the moment, but I'm not going to miss him when he's gone.
Yeah.
With his eyebrows that stick like a foot out either side of his head.
How does he get through doors?
I mean, their hair, it'll move aside.
But he sculpted them.
He says to fix them, you know. And then, Kaladin stuff. Yeah, anytime you get a new character that kind of just like stands in the shadows, it's very like, it's almost like an Aragorn moment in the tavern. It's like this dude sitting off to the side, like in the shadows. Who is this guy? You kind of get this vibe that this guy is going to be, if not a big character, at least a very interesting and cool character. And so, he's got warrior monk written all over him with the he was a soldier and now he's an ardent. So definitely interesting. And if he trains Renarin, if Renarin all of a sudden becomes a great swordsman, that'll be pretty cool. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if only to see, like you say, if Renarin actually, because apparently he's never trained and he's way older than most of the people beginning training. So if he actually like becomes a warrior that he's never been able to do, then that'll be interesting just to see.
Yeah.
How does that change this guy who's part of his personality has developed because he lives in this culture, this very martial culture, and he's never been able to be part of it, basically.
How does it change him? I mean, I don't know that's really a question that I'm interested in. I think he's gonna, I don't know, his character seems pretty solid. I think he's gonna be Renarin no matter what. If he has to fight, it's going to be, I think, for somebody else and not for himself and with hesitation.
Okay. That's fair. He's not just gonna be jumping in there like, I'll get him. I can beat up this shard bearer and win a duel. Give me a shot.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like his style.
That's fair. Okay.
I think the things in the last chapter that I also quite enjoyed was the conversation with like Syl and Kaladin as they're walking around as well about Amaram and you don't lie to me. I thought that was quite good. I also actually really liked the interaction between Renarin and Adolin at the start of the chapter. It just felt like a nice bonding thing because you kind of look at them and go, well, Adolin's like very superior to Renarin, and you don't see a lot of their bonding. Like they're together a lot because they're together a lot, but the whole, have you had your chicken? Like, have you done this? Have you done that? Like all the superstitions, he knows them so well, and it's been so long since he's had one of these like proper shardbearer duels, and it felt just like a really natural brotherly moment, and I really enjoyed those interactions.
That I definitely agree with. I think that their brotherly interactions have pretty much, we don't see them all that often. We really don't see Renarin all that often, but when we do and they have those interactions, they always feel very real to me.
Yeah, it is nice. You're just reminded that these guys are actually close, and it kind of reminds you a little bit of the relationship between Kaladin and Tien. So I wonder if Kaladin will ever see that as he's looking at the brothers as well.
That's a good question, because that's his only brother, so he has probably a very strong association between like brotherhood and that relationship. So I could easily see him kind of projecting that onto other brothers that he meets.
Yeah.
Which really, I mean, to Dak's point, I think it's like you'd think that maybe Kaladin would be a little more ready to like the little brother, the kind of like underdog little brother, even if he is light eyes. But so far, we haven't seen that. So far, no.
But he's not really looking at them that way either. So
it's true. There's time. Maybe they'll become best buddies. If we know a Light Eyes who could be friends with Kaladin, it would be Dalinar. But maybe Renarin after that. All right, I guess let's get into these chapters. The first one is Iron Stance, and the epigraph on this one is about mate form. It's once again we're going to the listener song of listing, and this one tells us that mate form, meek for love to share, given to life it brings us joy. To find this form one must care, true empathy one must employ. So we find out in the interludes that like to get a new form you have to attract the right kind of spren for that form when you're out in a high storm. So to me, this makes it sound like some sort of spren that shows up when you're feeling empathy or something is what you need for mate form. But it doesn't give us specifics. It's not like, go and find a love spren or whatever.
The love spren.
Then again,
there was going to be a trashy romance novel set in the world of Roshar. It would be the love spren.
The love spren is
love in the time of spren.
And it would be like the cover would be very risque. It'd be like a woman's left hand without being covered.
Oh, scandalous.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know that we can even. I don't know that we can even talk about this. I'm married.
So we come into this chapter, and Adolin is having a conversation with his sword. He's like, "I remember when I won you. Nobody took me serious."
As you do, you just talk to your sword.
And there's a note that like a lot of guys name their shard blades, but he has not named his. Not because he doesn't like names, but just because he's like, I mean, a Knight Radiant owned this sword once upon a time and probably named it. I don't know the right name, so I'm not gonna call it the wrong name.
That little bit there made me think, okay, like I know I have given Adolin quite a bit of shit in the past, but like this bit's like, oh, that's actually pretty self-aware and like quite thoughtful of him. So like I'll give credit where credit's due. Like I hope I haven't given the impression that I dislike Adolin, because I don't. Like, I think there is a lot about him too. Like, it's just easy to make fun of his way with women. But this bit was just like quite insightful. I thought, oh, that's a really nice thought. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, and I think really part of it is, and I agree. I don't. We've kind of ragged on Adolin some, but I think part of that is we haven't had a chance to see much depth from him.
Yeah.
And this is maybe one of the first chances we've had where we kind of like get into the way he thinks a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and it helps that dueling is one of his favorite things to do. So it makes sense that he would be at his most introspective and thoughtful when it's surrounding like the task that he loves doing.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. And so he's excited. This is a real duel, real stakes. He doesn't have to hold himself back anymore. And he can confide in his sword. I'm like, I'm confident around everyone else, but if I screw up today. We find out in a little bit that if he screws up today, he loses both his plate and his blade. So that would be a big shift.
That's rough.
For sure. Yeah. He doesn't lose, so it's okay. Spoiler for the end of the chapter that we've already discussed. But
I guess like that also shows like how much he's come around to his dad's way of thinking. He's like, all right, like I believe I can do this, but if I fail, like I have to give this up. But it's what my dad needs me to do, so I'm going to do it. I'm like, all right, props.
It also, when faced with that, it like kind of makes sense that he would just kind of be like, well, I'm not just gonna let this guy like test me. I'm just gonna beat him.
Yeah.
There's a bit about the 10 stances, which go with the 10 essences. So wind stance, stone stance, flame stance, and as the title of the chapter is, Iron Stance. And then Navani shows up and she's doing a glyph ward for him, which we find out it's like a thing that really his wife should be doing, but he doesn't have one of those. So his aunt / maybe going to be stepmother is helping him out.
Nice little subtle dig there as well. Like if you had a wife, it wouldn't be me you'd have to worry about.
Uh-huh. And she's also like, dude, you could learn some glyphs. Because he's like, oh, what does that say? Victory? And she's like, it says safety and glory. It wouldn't kill you to learn some glyphs, Adolin. It's like, I can just ask you what they mean. It's fine. And we find out that the wind's pleasure is a week overdue at this point. So this is at least a little bit past what we last saw from Shallan, I feel like, because unless they were already behind schedule on the ship, it didn't seem like she'd been off the ship for a week yet when we last saw her. And Navani is not worried about Jasnah. Like, she does this, she's going to pop up somewhere else in a few weeks and be like, what? Oh, no, yeah, I got distracted and had to do some other stuff.
100% that's what's going to happen. I mean, a murder attempt is pretty distracting.
I like the idea that she's gonna pop up and she's been researching somewhere else. She's like, oh yeah, someone tried to kill me. It wasn't really a big deal. I'm busy.
Yeah, but my ward, there's what's her name? What she should be there by now. Is she there?
Yeah.
Did I miss
What's
the
her
wedding?
name? Shelly? I don't know. Just
She's got lots of red hair. You'll know her when you see her.
we do find out that we didn't really know, I don't think, before when they made the. I guess we found out when in the same chapter where we found out about the betrothal that Adolin had broken up with his last girlfriend Danlin, and we found out here it's like letting somebody else choose for him had a kind of appeal, considering how loudly Danlin had cursed at him when he'd broken off that particular relationship. So apparently that was not a happy end to that relationship.
So that's interesting because I always thought that she dumped him, but apparently it was the other way around.
Well, and he says the things she'd said to her friends. So apparently she was talking in some way that he did not like about something, and so he broke it off.
I thought he said specifically it was about his dad.
It says, let's see. Danlin was still one of his father's scribes, so he saw her on occasion. More glares. But Stormit, this one was not his fault. The things she'd said to her friends, ... So I don't think it specifies.
I guess because it said, I guess I just associated it because it said she was still one of his scribes. And I remember earlier she was saying stuff. Was it her that was like, come on, Adolin, you know your dad, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, she was a little bit loosely talking about his dad.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't blame him. If your girlfriend's talking shit about your dad and your dad is a very important person that is your job to, see respected in his own army, then yeah, maybe,
Interesting though that it's like, hey dad, this lady has been openly disrespecting you to other members of the army. Fuck it, we can still employ her.
Right, yeah.
Is it more that she's been openly disrespecting Dalinar, or she made a comment that that Adolin didn't agree with, broke it off, and now she's been saying stuff to her friends about Adolin?
It could be that.
Could be.
Let's see. He says this was not my fault. The things she'd said to her friends. ... So that makes it sound to me like she said something to her friends. We're guessing it was about Dalinar. It might not have been that made him break up with her. But I guess that you could read it as like he's also mad about the things that she's saying to her friends.
Yeah, it's sort of left to interpretation, I guess.
Yeah. And so he starts putting his shard plate on, and Renarin comes in. He's like, okay, so you ate chicken? Yep. You talked to your sword? Sure did. Mother's chain in your pocket? Checked it 3 times. And Navani's like, oh, geez, really all these dumb superstitions? And they're like, you don't understand dueling, Aunt Navani. You don't understand football, Marge. And she's like, foolishness. Trust in the Almighty and the heralds, not whether or not you had the right meal before your duel. Jeez. Although apparently the Almighty's dead, so...
I'm just going to say, Navani, if you have something like a particularly spicy curry that might give you some heartburn right before a sporting event, it might cause you some problems in said sporting event.
I think we've learned when we've seen men's food in this world that it tends to be very spicy.
Yeah. That's like, you don't want anything that's going to, cause digestive problems.
Yeah, good call.
Or do you?
Or do you? It's your secret weapon.
It's like he's the guy's coming in for a duel and Ayla just lets rip with like a massive smelly fart.
Yeah, he's like, I call it flatulent stance. How do you like it?
It's wind stance. It's fine.
Yeah.
Not sure how it would work in your shard plate though.
Yeah, really.
That's true.
He just
Gas himself.
Yeah, he just gassed himself.
He just hotboxes himself.
He's like, oh no, it backfired so bad.
This is a bad plan.
This is a question that like some fan needs to ask Brandon sometime. What is the effect that shardplate has on flatulence?
Oh wow, yeah. I feel like now somebody has to ask that at a convention.
Yeah.
Data.
It could be addressed in the books for all you know. We still got like
If
2.5
only we knew
books to
someone
go.
going.
Well, you're going to the next convention, so if it hasn't been addressed in the book, I feel like it's your responsibility to ask said question.
I don't know if there'll be a Q&A but yeah,
Well, it's a Q&A when we
That
want.
would be some pretty amazing Patreon content. Chat with Brandon.
I've seen several questions that like when people have asked Brandon, he's just like, oh, really? And he answers them though. So, There's a discussion about how Adolin does not like their guards, because Renarin's like, they're not happy about this. They're like, how are we going to protect him when someone's swinging a shard blade at him? But when Renarin kind of like drills down with Adolin, because he's like, tell me the truth, what is your real problem here? And Adolin admits that he does not like Kaladin. There's something off about him that makes me suspicious. And Renarin's like, I think you don't like that he ordered you around on the battlefield. And he's like, no, I barely even remember that.
Bullshit.
And then the conversation ends with Renarin being like, brother, try not to lose. All right, then.
Accurate, brotherly sentiment.
So Adolin goes out for his duel, which is against Salanor, one of High Prince Thanadal's shard bearers. He only has a blade, but he's borrowed the king's plate for this bout. And Adolin's kind of offended because he had to risk both of his blade and plate against just the blade from this other guy in order to get him to agree, as if Adolin just wasn't worthy of his attention, which I can understand you feeling like somebody's beneath you duel-wise, but if the prize is a shard, one of these super rare things, then isn't that a good reason? You're like, oh, you're so much below me. Yeah, I'll take your shard from you. Why not? But if you can negotiate them up to 2 for your 1, I guess that's worth doing also. And so Adolin, the duel starts. Adolin goes into wind stance, and his opponent goes into flame stance, which is a one-handed stance, which really, these swords are like 6 feet long. I feel like one-handed really is an interesting approach there. And just as they're about to start, he's like, you know what? This doesn't feel right today. Every light eyes in this army is a raw recruit, is what my dad was thinking. It's not time for a show. It's time for a beating. And so he goes into iron stance instead, and he just like smacks the guy's helmet once, twice, 3 times, and the guy only manages to parry one of them. And Salinar is not sure how to handle this. It's like, this isn't the way the duels are supposed to go. There's supposed to be test blows. There's like an art to it. It's like a dance almost. But Adolin's just like, nah.
Ain't got time for that shit. We got 63 days, people.
And he like does a double hand strike to the guy's breastplate, like he's chopping wood, it says. And then he goes and he kicks him to the ground. And then just like, he basically like curb stomps the guy. He's wearing a helmet though, so it doesn't. But he just stomps on his helmet until it explodes, and then he stomps on the guy's breastplate until that too shatters. And the judge is like, "Stop! What are you doing? This is a duel, not a wrestling match." He's like, "What, did I break any rules?" And his opponent is like stunned on the ground now, like can't even really do anything. And Adolin's like, "So I win." And apparently the duel is supposed to be to 3 broken pieces of plate. But he's only done the helm and the breastplate so far. So Adolin reaches down, rips off the guy's pauldron, and smashes it in his hands. He's like, okay, there's 3.
Fucking boss move. Love it.
It so is, yeah.
This is probably the best Adolin moment we've had so far, I think.
I think I agree with that, yeah. And then he's like, okay, give me your blade. And the guy tries to, you cheated. How did I cheat? I don't know. It's just, you're not supposed to...
I just love how he's just taking no shit at this time. It's like, this is not how it's supposed to be done. Did I break any rules? It's not how it's supposed to. All right, so I win. Smash the thing. Give me a blade. You cheated. How? Yeah.
I just don't like the outcome.
Yeah.
And the guy doesn't want to give up his blade, it seems, for a moment. And then Adolin, like it says, carefully placed his gauntleted hand against the guy's neck. Like, there is a threat. You live up to your end of the duel, or I will crush your neck right now. And so Salanor summons his blade, and Adolin's like, break the bond. And so he touches, there's a ruby on the hilt of the weapon, and then he touches it, it flashes, and the bond is broken. And so everyone just like starts cheering. The whole crowd's like, that was awesome. We've never seen something like that in a duel. This is great.
Say they were cheering? I thought they were all just like muttering to each other and just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I thought it was like uncomfortable, like chattering.
Let's see. Oh, you're right. It does say the sound finally rose from the crowd, frantic chattering. I misread that as cheering just now. You're right.
Data was trying to get us hyped up.
Yeah. And so then as he's leaving, he's like, Renarin comes out to be like, oh my gosh, that's got to be the shortest shard bout ever. You were amazing. And Adolin's like, thanks. Here, a present for you. And he gives the shard blade to Renarin.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they meet Navani, and she's like, that wouldn't have worked with a more skilled opponent. He's like, I know. And she's like,
that's not what we're talking about here, is it?
She says, well, then it was wise. You mask your true skill. People can assume you won by trickery, and they'll continue to underestimate you. I can work with that.
Again, how is it trickery?
Right? Yeah.
Like, I get it. It's not the way normal duels are fought. There's, like, some back and forth with the blades, yada yada. But it's like, I didn't trick anybody. I just beat him quickly and senselessly with my fists. Get over it.
People will think that he's not skilled with, like, the actual blade since he hardly, he didn't use it as much. Yeah. And so they'll be like, oh, I can beat him.
Which is interesting to me because, I mean, I feel like people who know of him know that, like, dueling is his thing. So
yeah, you would think, right? Maybe, I don't know. He hasn't done it in a while, so maybe everyone thinks he's not good at it anymore, or I don't know. And I like
get
the
arrogant and complacent.
It's true. You're like, if he's not dueling, it's because he sucks, right? There couldn't be another reason.
Yeah, he clearly hasn't practiced in a year or, used the shard blade in battle or anything. Yeah, we got this guy.
Which I guess is maybe even part of it, because it's like, if you're in battle and you're using the shard blade on a bunch of people who don't have shard blades, then you won't be doing all this, like, the dance of a duel. You're just, like, cutting them down. So if that's all you did, you might lose your edge in the dueling arena. Because there's a big difference between fighting another shard bearer and somebody without. But I do love how the chapter ends with him being like, she's like, oh, that was smart then. He's like, yeah, that's totally why I did it. 100%. So we move to a hand with the tower, and the epigraph is about work form. We learn about work form. Seek first this form, its mysteries to bear. Found here is freedom from fear. So workers aren't scared of stuff? I don't know. And so Shallan, as we recall, did not have shoes when she came ashore, and kind of messed up her feet that first day when she's searching for help. And so this chapter starts with her being like, Tradesman Tvlakov, I believe you're wearing a different pair of shoes today than you were on the first day of our trip. And Tvlakov is just like, oh no, you must have made a mistake. I only have one pair of shoes. And she thinks that's a flat out lie. But after 6 days of traveling together, she's realized that he doesn't mind being caught in a lie. So I love that he's just completely shameless about it. Apparently he'll lie, and you catch him. He's like, you got me.
Well,
this guy.
Yeah, you got me. I just didn't want to give you my shoes.
Who else but Tvlakov?
It's Tvlakov. She's had to bandage her feet and get some knobweed sap to help with the rot spren. And so there's the knobweed stuff coming back. We've seen that before. And she's proud of herself for noticing those plants. She's like, it shows that I know what I'm doing out here. And so she's like, well, maybe if we meet another group with the merchant, I can trade for a pair of proper footwear. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll totally look out for that. And Pattern's like, lies. And she's like, yeah, I know. He knows if I can't walk, I'm dependent on him. And Tvlakov goes over to talk to his mercenaries, and she sends Pattern to, like, listen in. It's like, go see what he's saying. And Pattern's like, see? He's like, yeah, listen to the words, come back, repeat them. Which when he comes back, apparently he can, like, impersonate the voices exactly, which that's a cool trick. She's like, hey, this might be useful. And the conversation that he had is Tvlakov thinks that they can make some money off of Shallan, and the mercenary thinks that they should just leave her. And he's like, well, Tvlakov's like, it's a good thing I'm the boss because you're dumb. We're going to do what I want to do. And she's like, okay, I can't let him think that he's in charge of this situation, basically. She's got to pull another Jasnah. And so she goes up and she's just like, she kind of tries to put him in his place, and is as much as she can in this situation, by explaining that she's going to get a lot of money when they show up at Shattered Plains. She's betrothed and to somebody important, and the person who rescued her from pirates will get a big reward. And he doesn't quite believe her, and she's like, hey, don't mess with me, okay? You have no idea what storm you've wandered into. Take your petty schemes and stuff them in a crevice. Do what I say, and I'll see your debts canceled. You'll be a free man again. And that kind of, she's like, how does she know this? And it works, kind of. By acting confident and just calling him on his shit, he kind of backs down, and she's effectively kind of taken command of this caravan. And just as this is ending, actually, before that, she realizes that she's, like, glowing slightly, and that her dress looks like it no longer has tears and smudges on it. It was majestic. So she's like somehow fixed her dress or something.
I feel like this is Patton doing something here.
Could be. But the other mercenary, Bluth, he shows up. He's like, put out the fire. He found a group when he was out scouting, several dozen well-armed people with no horses or chulls. They're bandits or mercenaries or whatever you want to call them. And Tvlakov explains that there's a lot of nobody's policing out here this far from the Shattered Plains, but because there's so many Alethi on the Shattered Plains, there's lots of trade caravans moving back and forth from there, which means that there's a lot of people with money or goods to be robbed by bandits who hang out in the wilderness out here. And she's like, how can you be sure they're bandits? Maybe they're just soldiers. And he says, no, they're not flying a banner. They're not displaying any sigils. They're deserters. I'd bet the chulls on it. And Tvlakov says, you'd bet my chulls on a hand with the tower, Bluff. But Brightness, he's probably right. So there's the name of the chapter. We know that a hand with the tower is an automatic loss. We talked about that last week. So they're going to try to slip away in the dark without being noticed by this group of bandits so that they do not get murdered horribly. Bluth describes how deserters are worse than other kinds of bandits because they've given up everything already. When you desert, it breaks you. It leaves you willing to do anything because you've already given away everything that you cared about losing. She's like, oh, okay, wow, that's intense.
Sounds like he's speaking from experience here.
Yeah, I agree. He has so much detail in what he's saying that I'm like, it sounds like you know what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
And so we end the chapter with them trying to like sneak off into the night and not get discovered. So I'm sure it will work perfectly and nothing will go wrong. And then our third chapter, Swordmaster. And the epigraph is about nimble form. This form craves precision and plenty. I don't know what that means exactly, but and this is if you read where each one of these is from, mate form was the 5th stanza of that Song of Listing. Work form is the 19th stanza. This is the 27th stanza. So it sounds like there's at least 27 forms if each form seems to be a stanza, and we've gone to 27 stanzas. So potentially a lot of different ways that these guys can look. So Kaladin and Moash and the company are in the light-eyed dueling ground or practice grounds. Sorry. And Moash is like, I thought this place would be more impressive since dark-eyed soldiers aren't allowed in here. And Kaladin explains that basically the reason it's special is not because there's anything different about it, but because we're not allowed here. And he's thinking about Amaram showing up. And he's like, you know what? Actually, I'm happy about it. It means that I'll finally get to stick a spear in him. No, wait, not a spear, a knife. I want to be up close. I can watch him panic as he dies. That's dark, my man.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I blame you, but okay. So they've got they're coming in here to guard Adolin and Renarin. One of the Ardents who runs the training ground comes up and she's like, "Hey, this is the Light Eyes training ground. You need to get out of here." And Callan's like, "I'm captain of Bridge 4. We're guarding the Kolin boys while they practice." And the Ardent's like, "A captain? You? No." And somebody else has to like whisper to her, like, "No, seriously, he is. Shut up."
Well, just before that as well, there's a note there. It's like the Cobalt Guard got assigned to Kaladin as well, and they were all just like straight away on board with it. I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, they were there. They saw what he did.
Yeah. Like, it's just nice that they didn't face it from every angle. There were some people like in the Light Eyes camp who were just like, fuck yeah, these guys are great.
And not only were they like, oh yeah, they Kaladin, we'll follow you. They're like, hey, can we get some of those Bridge 4 patches? Like,
yeah,
and
like they were just like all in on just like man, you saved our lives. You fucking kicked ass on that battlefield. We're yours.
Yeah. And I also like that he's like, no, you know what? You guys were the Cobalt Guard. You guys are also awesome. I want you to keep wearing your patches as like a mark of pride in yourselves.
Yeah. That just seemed like a really healthy dynamic for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's kudos all around.
Yeah.
Blastfax kudos all around.
Yeah. Cookies with milking.
We call ourselves the Cobalt Bridge.
The Cobalt 4. Now that makes it sound like there's only 4 of them.
Yeah.
The 4 Cobalt Bridge.
Yeah, that's a little long.
Yeah, I know.
And so Kaladin starts assigning people to where they're going to guard. Basically trying, he's giving the Ardent some orders. He's like, hey, go let that guy in to this door that you have the key for. And she's kind of doesn't like this, but has to go along with it because he's in charge. She's like, what kind of danger do you expect them to be in here? He's like, well, I see lots of weapons, people moving around. Are those shard blades? Huh. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
The sass.
Right? Yes. And we find out that those shard blades that are hanging out are Elokar's shard blades. He has 2 of them. And Light Eyes, important like members of the army, can come and train with the blades. They want everybody to be trained on blade and plate so that if somebody dies, another person can take it up and be ready to go. It can take a long time to train someone how to use shards correctly. So you don't want to not have a shard bearer for that long if you can help it.
Checks out.
Yep.
One of the 2,
as we see in practice, it doesn't really do it.
One of the 2 blades was Elokar's father's blade. So he's hinted that someday he might bestow his father's blade upon a worthy warrior. And Kaladin's like, oh, that's smart. Yeah, he can like trick all the Light Eyes into coming and practicing if they think that it'll impress him into giving them a blade.
When they said, oh yeah, he might bestow his blade on, it's like, is that one of the reasons Sadeas kissed up to him so much in the previous book? Because we all knew Sadeas wanted a blade. That was how everything got resolved. Was that what he was banking on?
Maybe. I don't think that Sadeas was ever really impressing anyone with what an amazing warrior he was, but
I mean, he was leading the plateau charges
true.
By a wide margin. Maybe his hope was that Elokar would respect that and eventually give him one. I mean, one of his motivations, not his sole motivation, obviously, but
right. Also the money. That was good too.
Yeah.
And Moash is just like, dude, you were telling me to be respectful? And I was like, what do you mean? Well, first of all, you called the king Elokar instead of, his majesty or whatever. And then you implied that Light Eyes are lazy and needed to be tricked to come and practice. And Cal's like, oh, I did do those things. Yep. Thanks for the reminder.
I will say this once. Don't like Moash. He's got a point.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, shut up, Moash. Do as I say, not as I do.
But then, like, as he tells Moash to go and guard like the gate, Moash is like, wait, who's this Amaram guy? I see how you look at him.
Is this the time?
Right. Yeah, it's not the best time. But Kaladin kind of goes into it a little bit. He's like, I mean, I was in his army before. And Moash is like, oh, the slave brands. That's it. That was him. Then he's not the hero everyone says he is. And Kaladin's like, no. His soul is as dark as any I've ever known. And Moash is like, hey, man, we're going to get him. Sadeas, Amaram, the people who did this up to us, we're going to get him. And Kaladin's like, yeah, we are.
That was a weird conversation.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Kaladin, old buddy. We'll get him.
He starts having a conversation with Syl. I like her first comment. Is like, there's another guy who could learn to smile more about Moash. And he's bothered that Dalinar is friends with Amaram. Like, how can Dalinar be friends with, like, one of the worst dudes I've ever met? He's worse than Sadeas. Everyone knows that Sadeas is a piece of shit. But Amaram is somehow, like, makes himself seem like he's great. And she's like, well, Dalinar is not like that. And he's like, well, people used to say the same things about Amaram they say about Dalinar. In fact, they still do. And she's like, no. Can you honestly say to me that you think Dalinar Kholin is just pretending to be honorable? Don't lie to me. He's like, no, you're right.
She gets pissed.
Yeah, she does. She calls him on his shit.
Have we seen Syl this pissed off before?
I don't think so. I mean, it says a cloud boils up from beneath her feet and flashes with lightning. So no, I don't think so. This is serious.
Yeah, she's just full on. Just like I will like shoot a lightning bolt up your ass right now.
And eventually he has to believe it's like, okay, I mean, Amaram had me fooled. He had everybody fooled. I can't blame Dalinar for falling for that same stuff. And Syl's like, well, you should talk to him about Amaram. He's like, hey, what am I supposed to say? That like a super high-ranking Light Eyes murdered his own troops and stole my shard blade? I'm gonna sound like a crazy person. And we cut to him kind of looking at everybody. He's examining people and making sure, everything's cool, making sure everybody's safe. And these Ardents, he notices, are kind of different from the other Ardents that he's seen. These guys look like warriors. And they step in when, like, a Light Eyes needs a sparring partner. Like, these guys come in and they're not messing around. And here come Adolin and Renarin, both fully armored with their bodyguard, Scar and some members of the Cobalt Guard. And Kaladin has to be like, right, Lord, we've secured the place as best we can. We'll keep an eye out while you're sparring, but holler if something seems wrong. And Adolin has to kind of, instead of, Kaladin is trying to be very professional. He doesn't like Adolin much that we've seen either, but he's doing his job. And Adolin decides he needs to needle him a little bit. Like, oh, you decided to start using proper titles for people? Don't you call my father sir? It's like, well, he's in my chain of command, and I'm not. No. And if I give you an order, it's like, well, I'll comply with any reasonable request, but if you want somebody to get you tea, you'll have to send somebody else. There should be plenty here willing to lick your heels, which that was going a bit far, man.
Dude, what did we just talk about with fucking Moash?
I listened to what you said, and I decided to ignore you.
Yep. After careful consideration, I've decided to keep being an asshole.
Good suggestion. Don't give a fuck.
And so, like, Adolin, like, steps up to him. He's like, like giving him a stare down. And Kaladin thinks Adolin represents something, the privilege of the Light Eyes. He's not like Amaram or Sadius. Kaladin doesn't hate him. He just is annoyed by him. Well, he sips wine and wears fancy clothes while other people get made slaves almost on a whim. And Adolin says, I owe you my life. That's the only reason I haven't thrown you through a window, but my patience with you won't extend as far as my father's little bridge man. There's something off about you, and I'm watching you. Remember your place. Which, damn, that's all right. And Kaladin immediately retorts with, I'll keep you alive. That's my place.
It's like how he shoves Adolin's finger away from him. It's like,
yep.
You get that out of my face, buddy.
And I would have expected that. It's like, I'll keep you alive to upset Adolin, but he's just like, no, I can keep myself alive. You watch my brother. So apparently he can appreciate the bodyguard job when it's his brother that's being guarded. Kaladin recently realized that he turned 20 at some point while he was a bridgeman and didn't notice, so Adolin is probably in his early 20s, so they're close to the same age. Renarin is carrying his new shard blade around. Apparently it takes 5 days to bond to a blade before you can dismiss it, so he has to walk around with it everywhere.
Not convenient when they're like 6 foot long.
Right? Yeah. And they cut through anything, so if you just accidentally like swing it wrong, you're going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like,
sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, right.
When he has to sleep with it.
Don't roll over.
He's like is like duct tape it to his hand.
The alarm clock goes off and he just cuts the table in half.
Whoops. That's Sadius, who's the table bane.
No, that's right. Yes.
Renarin's gonna just like some guy comes in to wake him up and he turns around too fast and slices right through him. Like, oh, I need a new manservant again. It's the third one this week.
He's at the dinner table. He's using it to chop his steak. like Daladar's just like sitting on the other side of the table, ducking. Is like, do you have to do that now? It's like, Dad, you know the rules.
You just like duct tape it to your back somehow. So Adolin takes Renarin over to a bunch of Ardents who are hanging around in the back of the courtyard. And Kaladin's like, I mean, he's had that plate from his dad for 3 weeks now. Why didn't he start training before? Maybe Adolin was waiting to get him a blade. And then there's a thing about like Ardents are technically property, but they get this respect as, I mean, the representatives of the Almighty, but also in this case, these guys are like the sword masters, we find out. So there's like a weird combination of we own you and you have to do what we say, but also we need to like respect you and get your agreement before. As Zahel will explain later, you have to be accepted by the sword master before you can get training. And Syl like, humans don't make sense. And Kaladin's like, well, yeah, I mean, if you haven't learned that before, you haven't been paying attention. And she says she doesn't like Adolin or Renarin. And Kaladin's like, well, you just like anyone who carries shards. And she says, exactly. You called the blades abominations before, but the Radiance carried them. Were they wrong? She's like, no. The shards weren't abominations then. And he's like, so it's not that the shards are bad. It's just that the wrong people are carrying them. And Syl says, there are no right people anymore. Maybe there never were. And he says, like, how did the ancients get such amazing weapons? Like, where did these come from? And she says, I wish I could tell you. And he says, well, then do tell me. I wish it worked that way. It doesn't. Conversations with Syl can get frustrating. And then Kaladin notices a guy standing in the shadows, watching the princes. And she says, well, everybody's watching the princes. No, this guy's different. Come on. Long hair with a short, scruffy black beard, tan clothing tied with ropes. That's a weird description. Like, does he have ropes tied all over him, or like a BDSM thing? I don't.
BDSM. I think it means like for a belt, but you're right.
Oh, he has a rope for a belt.
It doesn't say it that way.
And Kaladin thinks that he looks out of place here, which probably means he's not an assassin because good assassins don't stand out. I mean, Seth wears white when he goes to kill a king, so he's kind of stood out. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, but he wasn't known as an assassin until after that.
True. He still wears white when he goes to kill people, though.
Yeah, but he was specifically ordered to do that.
Also true.
Like when he was like between killing Gavilar and getting picked up by the King of
Taravangian.
Taravangian, yeah, I knew it was a long one, started with a T. Like he was just kind of unobtrusive, just in rags and shit. He wasn't wearing his white until Taravangian picked him up.
Although that one guy had him dressing up like a ninja.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, this is terrible clothing for assassinating people, but whatever. So Kaladin approaches this guy, and the guy turns around so fast that he like levels his spear at him, like, wait, to defend himself on instinct. And he's like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm a little jumpy. First week's on the job. And the guy says absolutely nothing.
Oh, I didn't pick up before that this guy's a Dark Eyes.
Yeah, at first it says that he can't place whether he's light-eyed or dark-eyed because he's standing over there in the shadows. And then when he approaches, like, the guy doesn't say anything. Also, he can't determine his age. He's like, could be 35, could be 70. I don't know. But yes, when he gets close enough, he can tell that they are brown eyes. So, and when the guy doesn't respond, it says the man looked him up and down, still showing the chained menace of a warrior deciding whether or not to strike. That's a dramatic description. All right. And so Kaladin's trying to be, casual about it. He's like, well, hey, what's your name? I'm new. I'm trying to learn everybody's names. And the response is, you're the bridgeman, the one who saved the High Prince. And Kaladin's like, yeah? You don't need to keep prying. I'm not going to hurt your damnation, Prince.
That sounds like something someone who wants to hurt the prince would say.
Yeah, why are you saying damnation?
And also, this guy has a strange accent that Kaladin can't really place. And so this guy is wearing similar clothing to the Ardents, but he has full head of hair when the Ardents, male and female, shave their heads. So that is what was throwing Kaladin off, basically. And he says, you're a soldier. Well, an ex-soldier, I mean. And he described earlier that sometimes people retire from the military life and become Ardents. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. And he's like, I would have thought they'd at least make the guy shave his head. And finally, he introduces himself as Zahel. And Zahel explains to him that that Renarin has to be chosen by a master for training. And most light-eyed boys start training at 10, and he's about almost twice that old. I think he's a little younger than Kaladin, so it's an awkward situation. And Kaladin's like, so they'd really turn him down, the High Prince's son? And Zahel's like, I mean, they could, but they're probably not brave enough to. And then Adolin stands up and spots him and makes a gesture. And he's like, Swordmaster Zahel, you aren't sitting with the others. Zahel's like, damnation. I knew it was suspicious he waited for this until I got back. So apparently Adolin had already decided what Swordmaster he wanted Renarin to have, and that's why they waited this long. He says, I'm probably not brave enough to say no either. I'll try not to hurt him too much. He takes off, and Kaladin's like, does that guy seem weird to you, Syl? And Syl's like, you all seem weird to me. Everyone except Rock, who's a complete gentleman. And she's like, he thinks you're a god. Don't encourage that. Why not? I am a god. A little piece of one. A very, very little piece, but you have my permission to bow to me now. Kind of hard when you're sitting on my shoulder. And we get to the end of
didn't stop Rock
with that. No, it didn't, right? That's what I was thinking when he said that.
That's why he's a gentleman.
Exactly. Yep. We don't. If you guys saw, there is an illustration after the end of that chapter, and it is the title in the table of contents is Shallan's sketchbook pattern. So this is the sketches of pattern and the notes Shallan took on him, and it appears to be water damaged. But in the bottom right corner, in a different handwriting, because Shallan has a very curly sort of handwriting style on this page, we have a note from Naz. You have no idea what I went through to recover this from the bottom of the Rosharan Ocean. You owe me a new coat, Naz. Why would you wear your coat into the ocean, my dude? But I just like the illustration because you're seeing how the pattern changes. You're getting an idea of what he looked like when he was just rolling around on the floor, basically.
Yep.
It was quite pretty.
It is. Agreed.
I wonder how many people have gotten one of these tattooed on them.
That's a good question. A lot of people get the first oath or whatever of the Knights Radiant, the life before death, strength before weakness thing. I've seen that tattoo a lot, but I don't remember having seen one of these. Those are our chapters. So let's move into predicaments. I will give you guys the next chapters for reading first. We're reading 4 chapters for next time. Chapter 17, 18, 19, and 20. Chapter 17 is called A Pattern. Chapter 18 is called Bruises. Chapter 19 is called Safe Things. And chapter 20 is called The Coldness of Clarity. So what's going to happen? Where are we going with these stories?
What's going to happen? Pattern is probably going to be about Pattern, more than likely, I think. Bruises. Maybe a Kaladin chapter. Maybe sort of in line with his stuff, his feelings about Amaram, and like maybe sort of, metaphorical bruises rather than literal bruises.
Oh.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Who else is bruised? Could be Shallan. Bruises are healing. I don't know. What's the last one?
The third one, we have 4. The third one is Safe Things.
Safe Things. Yeah, no idea.
And then the last one is The Coldness of Clarity.
Okay, that could be anyone as well. Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I'll start with the first 2, and then I will just wait and be surprised about the last 2, I think.
There you go.
Yeah, that's about all I've got there. Predictions, where are we going next? So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell how long Shallan's journey we're expecting to take, because they were expecting the ship to have docked by now, but we don't necessarily know where the ship was going to dock. I think they did say, but I don't know how far away that is from them as well. Like, they're expecting to have heard from Jasnah, but not expecting that Jasnah has shown up yet. And obviously, Shallan's on her own. So I'm hoping that we're getting closer to that. We heard, and I think, I don't know if it was in these lot of chapters, I can't remember, or if it was previously, but that more writing has happened in Dalinar's, when he's had his visions. And so that someone else has either snuck in or Dalinar's doing it himself as another warning. So we're getting to kind of the halfway point of our time. I'd like to think that Shallan will make it before the 60 days or 63 days is up. So I don't know. I can't tell how much is going to happen on her journey still, or if it's really just going to be about her getting there now. She's kind of had that moment of boldness. I feel like there's still more to learn about Pattern before we see her unite with everyone, which is possibly even in the next chapter that we're going to read. Interesting that Adolin I thought he would be less receptive to having a bride picked out for him than he appeared to be. Like, I thought there'd be a bit more of a challenge. Like, if they get along, he might just be like, yeah, cool, go for it. This works for me. That's fine. I think that the Kaladin and Amaram thing is going to have to go somewhere in this book. I don't think they're going to get away with just being like, yeah, Kaladin hates him and Amaram is Dalinar's best friend, and, I don't think they're besties, but they're obviously friends. How soon we get that? I mean, Kaladin's protecting Dalinar, so realistically we should see them come face to face fairly soon, which I don't know how that's going to go. I mean, it's been some time since that happened, so maybe Amaram, I'm in 2 minds. Amaram may just completely not remember him, or he will absolutely remember him because he's the one he had to get rid of. Mm-hmm. He's the reason he's got his shard blade currently. I don't know that it would come to Amaram needing to duel Adolin, but that would be quite interesting to see how that went. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my predictions are more just a lot of thoughts about what's going on at the moment rather than this is what I think is going to happen. Like, you sort of get to a point in the book where you go, I actually have no idea what's going to happen. I've just got a lot of thoughts running around, and I feel that's kind of where I am at the moment. There's so many things that could happen, so many things that could still, go horribly wrong, that could go wonderfully right. We know there's a lot going on that everyone else doesn't know about. Those chapters, and I realize Ash and I wasn't in today's chapters that we did, but I really, really want to see now Ash and I and Dalinar end up meeting and having a conversation, because that could change a lot. and obviously like they're a lot more civilized than what we've been made out to believe so far, which is interesting because they absolutely knew that. Like the Alethi knew that. They've had conversations with them in the past, and then it's like sort of made out there's this whole primitive culture where it's actually they're quite advanced. It's just they've lost a lot. And yeah, they really are at that sort of desperation point, which is exactly where the Alethi were trying to get them to be. But that's what I want to see.
It's true. That is where the Alethi were trying to get them to be.
Yeah, and they're there. So regardless, the war is gonna at some point soon. Probably, how long can they reasonably hang on for? Like surely it can't be that much longer. Their population's dwindling. They're definitely not living like they used to. But it would be really good to see. It would be really good to see the war change. Like this whole like the Stormlight Archive is this book coming out is what, book 5?
Yeah, the next one is book 5. Yep.
That's a lot of book to keep going in a war the same way, where in book 2 they're already struggling. So I would like to see a change there, a change in some of our characters' perspectives, but it would be good to see a change in our perspective as well. Like I've definitely got empathy for the other side, and it's not as straightforward as it's made out to be. You don't really know who's the good guys and the bad guys. Like, yeah, sure, their actions started it and kicked it off, and they're fully aware that they made a certain decision and they had their reasons. But yeah, it's gone obviously way out of hand now, but it may all be for nothing if the Knights Radiant are returning, and they clearly don't want that. So yeah, it's kind of where my thoughts are sitting today. Nothing outrageous to predict. Getting my head back in the game, really.
You're right about the Knights Radiant thing, where it's like they clearly are like, this is a bad sign. The Knights Radiant or Surge binding is coming back, and at least one of them expresses that maybe that's an indication that their gods are on the way back also, which, like you said, the whole point was they were trying to prevent that from happening, and now it may be happening anyway, so maybe it was all pointless. So that's a real...
So prolonged the inevitable and dwindled your numbers so that if you were to fight it, maybe you would have had a chance before.
Yeah, and it's really just a crappy place to be, that you've sacrificed like 60% of your people or whatever for this thing, and then it turns out that it's not going to matter. If that is the case. I think you brought up a really good point, though, because we've talked about how Kaladin could react to Amaram, but we hadn't really brought up before, how will Amaram react to seeing Kaladin again? Will he remember him? Will he not, like you mentioned? And if he does recognize him, like, what do you do or say in that situation when, if you recognize him, it's going to be because he's guarding Dalinar, who Amaram is an important Light Eyes, but Dalinar is a more important one. So what do you say when you see this guy there?
Yeah, I mean, look, if I was Amaram, I mean, Amaram would know that Kaladin is a man of honor and is a man of his word, of someone who he trusted to, guard and help himself. So he obviously saw something in him to begin with, but then had to get rid of him because he knew, obviously, secrets that Amaram didn't want to have out in the open. So Amaram, I would think that he would, well, it depends on how much he actually did this. Was this like a once-off and he saw a situation where there was no way out and this was the only thing he could do and it was horrible to Kaladin? Or is this actually his true self? So if it was the former, I would expect him to be somewhat ashamed and he probably wouldn't want to bring it up to Dalinar, but you then also run the risk of Kaladin bringing it up to Dalinar. So how you deal with that, you'd try and maybe spin your own story or something like that. The other side of it is that you would be you probably wouldn't care, and maybe he wouldn't remember him. I was like, yeah, you were for a purpose a long time ago, but I couldn't possibly think that you'd still be around, and definitely not here. Like you were sold into slavery, and I mean, I don't know if he knows that he ended up in Sadius's war camp and as a bridgeman, and if he knew he ended up as a bridgeman, he wouldn't have expected him to survive. Like that's
right.
That's just not the common outcome for a bridgeman. But surely he would have to be aware now that Sadius doesn't have all the bridgemen. But then someone in Thaddeus's camp that's still, or Thaddeus's army that's then still close enough to Dalinar. What the hell is Amaram doing here? Because I can't imagine that someone trusted to Thaddeus would be particularly trusted to Dalinar now. So we don't know what either of them are playing at. But I don't know. It could go either way. If I was Amaram, I would be shitting myself to see Kaladin. And you would just hope that your secrets aren't exposed. Maybe he would make an effort to try and take Kaladin out again, or proving him as a liar or something like that. I don't know. But Kaladin will come out on top. Have faith.
One would hope, since he's one of the main characters and Amram's not. But
correct.
I guess you never know.
Mm.
What kind of story does Amaram tell there? That I hadn't thought about that either, but you make a good point. It's like, do you try to get out ahead of it and spin your own version of the story? I doubt that there'd be any way for him to know that Kaladin ended up here as a slave, because I'm pretty sure we were told that he went through multiple owners since Amaram sold him into slavery. So I doubt that he's tracking him that closely. But so maybe he'll just spot Kaladin and like his mouth will drop open comically and everyone will be like, "What's wrong?" He's like, I don't know.
Maybe it'll be big enough to prompt something, but you know, if Dalinar doesn't truly trust Amaram, we don't know. We haven't seen their interactions. But if he doesn't truly trust him, then you'd almost hope that he'd go to Kaladin first and go, "Well, I got quite a reaction out of Amaram when he saw you. What gives?" Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That could be a funny interaction. Yeah. It's like, so Amaram had a strong reaction. You want to explain that?
Why does he react so around you?
So, Kaladin, Amaram and I were having drinks the other night when you took over guarding, and then he saw you and he spat his drink all over me in shock. Can you please explain that?
Yeah, it was really annoying because Navani had just bought me that, and anyway.
So this is a scene that I'm now excited for us to get to, if and when it happens, is the Amaram recognizes Kaladin scene.
I hope we get it. I'll feel cheated if we don't.
Yeah, and I kind of agree a little bit.
Yeah, there have been a few things that have just been like, we didn't get to see this person's reaction to that. We didn't get to see, like Jamie said, Adelin's reaction to being told you're going to marry this girl. Like, okay, don't stiff us on this one, Brandon.
I guess we shall see. Maybe Amaram will just randomly die, and it'll never happen.
He'll die of shock seeing Kaladin's face.
Just has a heart attack. What?
That would be cool.
How does that work? If he's like in Dalinar's camp visiting Dalinar and he dies and he's got a shard blade and shard plate, it's like, do we send this back to Sadeas or is it ours now?
No. It turns out like Sadeas sent some poison. So Amaram like is eating something at Dalinar's table, looks up, sees Kaladin, gets really shocked, but at the same time the poison works it. So like Kaladin's like, oh my god, he saw me, and he just like spontaneously collapsed, and he doesn't find out, like, because he doesn't hear. Like the medics look at him and say, "Oh yeah, he was poisoned." So everyone else knows that Amaram died from being poisoned, but Kaladin's like, I scared the shit out of him.
I have amazing powers. I just looked at him and thought, I want you to die, and he died. Oh my god. It's like Death Note.
No, Death Note requires a Death Note. That's why it's called Death Note.
Well, yeah, but it's like Death. It's Death Brain. That doesn't sound right either.
No, it's Death Note.
No, if Kaladin could just like kill him with his mind, like something like
Yeah.
River Tam.
Yeah. Explode their brains.
I have a shirt, I think, of with River on it. It's like, also I can kill you with my brain.
You could read minds.
All right, predictions.
Yep.
Yes. So Patton, that's Shallan, obviously. So I guess we'll see. Maybe they'll run into these bandits, and we'll see a little fight scene. Maybe, hell, let's see if, like, Crazy Vlakov and all these guys get killed, and they're just like, oh, this one's a Bright Eyes. What do we do with her? And she just Jasnahs her way into controlling the bandit group as well. That'd be funny.
Except you gotta kill Crazy Vlakov. That's sad.
There's only so many times I can make kerosene jokes.
Fair.
I liked how you used Jasnah's name there, though. She just Jasnahs her way into doing it. But yeah, very cool.
It's verb now.
Don't you verb me. Bruises. I mean, could be Kaladin, could also be Adolin, considering we just saw this very very odd new swordmaster just going. I was like, oh, I won't hurt him too bad, so maybe Adolin's just watching us render and gets the shit beat out of him. And it's like, is that hell? Is that hell? You want to turn it back? No. Okay.
He said he'll try not to hurt him too much.
Yeah. What the hell, Zahel? What Zahel? Yeah. Well, there's got to be some way to make that work. There's got to be why he's called that.
I don't know if we've heard them use hell. They tend to use damnation, I think.
Safe things. I don't know why, but this puts me in my head of like safe hand, safe things in the safe pouch, and safe hands and such and such. So I guess that might mean another Shallan chapter. I could be entirely wrong on that. Coldness of clarity. I feel like that's got to be something Sadeas is telling himself. Like he's on the docket for a chapter this go around. So maybe we'll see. Maybe that'll be him.
It's true. I mean, it's kind of a prosaic chapter title, but yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that seems like his thing, because from that brief window we saw into him earlier when he was talking with his spy master wife, like that. I think that's what he seems to think he has clarity. So we'll see. But I have an overall prediction for the book as a whole, where I like these chapters. We've really leaned into the tension between Adolin and Kaladin. And I want to see that. I want to see that go further. I feel like that's going to get explored, and it'll come to a head at some point relatively soon. I like to think that they'll be put in a dangerous situation together, and it'll just wind up being the two of them. So I'm picturing maybe some assassins come for them both. Some of Sadeas' assassins come for them both. Kaladin's team who are with him will just be some no-name dudes from Bridge 4. They get killed. So it's just Kaladin and Adolin left, and they wind up saving each other. And Kaladin is really broken up about losing his men, and Adolin's kind of just like, I'm sorry, man. Like, let's just put aside our dislike of each other. I am sorry for the loss of your men. They gave their life saving mine. And maybe they start to sort of bond a bit. They talk about this has to be Sadeas, and they both talk about how much they hate Sadeas, and they bond over that hatred. I think that'd be pretty cool. And so then as a result of that, Adolin starts to come around on Kaladin. And then at some point in there, this is where Kaladin's hatred of Amaram comes out. And I think it'll look like Adolin is about to go, Amaram's a hero. What the fuck are you on about? But then it completely turns around, and he actually winds up helping Kaladin against Amaram. And it's like, shows how he's developed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it would be nice to have, if you're going up against Amaram, to have someone like Adolin on your side, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like at the current moment, Adolin's the least likely person in Dalinar's camp to have Kaladin's back. So it would be nice if when the Kaladin and Amaram situation comes to the boil, Adolin is the one to back him.
Yeah, I can see that. What a twist.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to picture how the situation would come to a boil that Adolin has his back. And it could be as simple as, Kaladin comes out and tells Dalinar, here's what happened. And Dalinar is not sure whether to believe him. And then Adolin's like, no, after the experiences that I've had with this guy, I believe him. And that could contribute. Although Dalinar already trusts Kaladin, so maybe not. But
well, Dalinar trusts Kaladin, but he also trusts Amaram. And he's known Amaram for longer. So... Yeah.
Or it could be like an all-out fight somehow. Like Kaladin and Amaram just start going at it.
Yeah.
And then it looks bad for Kaladin because Amaram has Shard Plate and Shard Blade, but Adolin can step in. Both could be interesting for sure, or anywhere in between. Okay.
Yeah, I mean the chapter pattern that's got to be from Pattern's perspective. That'd be interesting, right? A whole thing from Pattern's perspective.
Oh, like an I Am the Stick chapter, but
yeah,
okay.
Pattern. And we know he's a spren. He's got more going on than a stick. And so I'm looking forward to that. Getting to see inside Pattern's head. If it's the first spren we get to see inside their head, that's pretty cool. Because he's zany, that Pattern. Wild and zany. Yeah, so if we get to see inside Pattern's head, maybe we get to kind of figure out more about him as a spren and kind of what's going on inside there. Because Syl's, she's been pretty self-aware for a while now, so we've gotten lots of Syl info. Some of it vague, but still we've gotten a lot of it. Yeah. And so it'd be interesting to see, what Pattern has to offer. What was the second chapter called?
The second chapter was Bruises.
With Bruises, I don't know what that could be. I mean, if we've got pattern, Bruises, maybe it's another Kaladin chapter. And then the last chapter, I think, is going to be Shallan, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen in that. Maybe as she's going with the slavers, something happens and her safe hand cannot be covered. They uncovered it. She woke up with it uncovered that one night after the fire, or after the shipwreck next to the fire. So, anything could happen. Hopefully not. I don't know what it means to cover your safe hand in this culture. Like, if somebody touches your safe hand and they're the member of the opposite sex, does that make you impure? Like, I don't really get it. But
you're married now. Sorry.
Yeah, married immediately. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs. No time for the old in and out, love. I've just come to read the meter. Let's see. What else? What else can I say? I'm really just gonna stand by previous predicaments. I think Shallan is going to get there. I think maybe she's going to be more attached to Ren than Adolin. I think Jasnah's still alive. We'll just harp on that again. She'll come back at some point, maybe, hopefully, maybe not. I think the Kaladin and Amaram situation, hearing Jamie and Dak talk about it, I really haven't progressed anymore with what I think's going to happen. I really don't know if there's going to be any kind of confrontation between them in the immediate future. It may just be something down the line that is Brandon's style a lot of times is like, okay, there's this underwriting tension with this thing in the background, and then very suddenly, very swiftly, it's addressed and resolved. So I don't know what that situation would look like, but that tends to be sometimes how he does things, right? So it's like, it may be something near the end of the book that gets resolved. It may be something where Amaram betrays Dalinar, and Dalinar realizes, oh, this Amaram guy is not so great. And then Kaladin's like, yeah, I could have told you that, but I didn't. Sorry.
Nobody asked me.
I feared for my life, so I didn't.
All right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, we're only 20-something% through the book. Is that right?
We are right now 20. Sorry, I'm just trying to load. Oh wait, I was going to the chapter called Pattern instead of a pattern. We're 22% of the way through the book.
22% of the way through the book. So I mean, we're not even a quarter of the way through. There's plenty of time for things to happen differently than the way we predict them to happen. So I'm just looking forward to reading more and getting my delicious knowledge nuggets down into my mouth and eat them and taste them and digest them and all the other things you want to talk about bodily functions as far as food goes. So yeah,
all things you do with them, with nuggets. Right.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like a nice nugget?
Fair enough. Yeah, I like the idea that it's like the Amaram Kaladin thing is something that, what if we spent almost the entire book with Amaram never noticing Kaladin and Kaladin never approaching Amaram because he's waiting for the right moment, and then it's just all of a sudden at the end they lock eyes across a room and something starts and it gets sorted out really suddenly. That'd be interesting.
Kaladin's like, sup? He's like, sup?
Kaladin sticks him to his own bed and he's like, remember me?
He's like, no.
No, I really don't. For you, it was the worst day of your life. For me, it was just a Tuesday.
Yeah, for me, it was that day I got really, really high, and then I listened to my captain, the captain of my guard. I can't express to you how high I was that day.
Remember me? Are you the guy who cleans out my bedpan? Somehow that's worse.
Do you remember me? Aren't you the guy? Oh, damn. What's your name? You're that dude. You're the Dark Eyes captain of my buddies. Yeah, but do you remember me? I mean, other than the thing I just said, no.
That would be worse if after all of his hatred of Amaram, he shows up and Amaram's like, who the devil are you?
I mean, I feel like that's been his thing though, right? Because it's when he was like, yeah, I'll protect your brother, whatever. And then later when he sees him, he's like, oh, I don't remember you.
That's true. Yeah. It has happened once.
And even when he was serving in Sadius's bridge cruise, it was kind of when he was doing the being the arrow target with all the Parshendi bones on him. Sadeas rides up. It's like, oh, good trick. And Sadeas takes him and it's like, oh, hang on a minute. This is that one, isn't it?
This is that dick guy I hate.
Yeah, it took me a minute to recognize him.
Well, he wasn't wearing bones before, is the thing. So.
Yeah, the bones really confused me.
He wasn't wearing anything at all. We strung him up in the storm naked, except in his underpants.
That happened.
Good times.
Maybe we should have put him in bones for the storm. See what happens.
I feel like that can only protect you more.
Maybe. Are bones conductive?
I don't think so. Maybe.
No, that shouldn't be. I mean, you have trace metals in your bones, but I don't think so.
I mean, your flesh is, but
what about Parshendi bones?
That's true. They could be completely different. True.
Yeah. Won't they crush my Parshendi bones? Nah.
Okay, let's move into. We have one new patron, and we have a couple emails that includes a review. So get both your lists ready.
Well,
we'll do the patron first this time. Our new patron at the ska level is called Sentai. Senti? S-E-N-T-I.
Sentai. You're a subsumer. You store energy.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Eat up a bunch of food and then not have to eat for a while. Yeah. So.
Or can you store kinetic energy? Is that a thing?
There's a mutant who does that, right? Like an X-Man. That's Dax's department, though.
Isn't that Gambit's thing?
I was about to say, isn't that your favorite X-Man? Don't you know?
Well, he charges stuff, but no, isn't there like somebody who absorbs various kinds of energy and then can redirect them?
Oh yeah, that's Bishop.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah, good old Bishop.
So thank you, Sentai, for backing our Patreon. If somebody is interested, our Patreon is mostly my reaction to Brandon books as I'm reading them for the first time. There's a few other little things that get put out there, but right now I'm putting up chapters of Dragonsteel Prime as I'm reading those for the first time. And I've recorded the first 2 episodes are up when we're recording this. And I think I've recorded 2 more, but I have not yet had time to edit those. So I can't guarantee that they will go up on schedule. But that's our Patreon. If you're interested in that, it's the Sanderlanche podcast on Patreon. Check it out. We also have an email from, I'm going to say this is pronounced Olli, O-L-L-I. It says, hello, Sanderlanche crew. And greetings from Finland. I'm a longtime listener and first-time emailer. Caught up to your episodes back in Hero of Ages. Your Baby Break episodes long ago inspired me to check out some 1-star reviews for my favorite Cosmere books. So here we go. I found this little gem of a review on Way of Kings and thought you guys would find it funny. It's actually quite long, but here's a little excerpt. I love big books. A big, thick book with a big, thick, juicy plot and fully realized world. That's the excerpt.
Richard! I wonder why that one was 1 star.
I assume that they're going to continue on to be like, this one did not have a thick, juicy plot.
Yeah, so, I will say a little while ago, when I was bored, I actually went on Goodreads and looked up 1-star reviews of Way of Kings.
Nice.
Don't worry, I didn't see any spoilers. This was after we finished it, obviously.
Presumably after we read it.
Yeah. And yeah, like the running theme across 1-star reviews that I read seemed to be people who said didn't have much of a plot. Too many people said it gets good in the last 200 pages, which is too late for a 1,000-page book. And it was basically just saying it's like books took way too slow to get going, which like I like the book, but I can kind of see where they're coming from on that one.
Yeah, it probably feels slower to us, honestly, because how we read it, but they're not completely without foundation. I agree.
Yeah. The other complaint I saw cropping up the most is like people just going, "What the fuck are Spren? This is bullshit." I'm like, okay, look, if you can't get on board with Spren, yeah, this series ain't gonna be for you.
Also, if you read the book, you'll find out eventually, and you gotta just trust that the author knows something about what they're doing.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and like we've all picked up something that we've gone, I don't know that I understand what I'm doing here, and been confused. And there are some points probably in Brandon's books that I would go, especially given that like Mistborn was my first introduction into this genre.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God, there are words being thrown at me that I cannot wrap my head around. I could see how that would like turn people off and go, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But, persisting through it and seeing the other side, you're like, you do get answers eventually. So Hang in there on the spread question.
Think if we'd started with Elantris, it would have been nothing but words that you have no idea what they mean.
True, yeah.
I think the early episodes of Atlantis were just like, there's a lot right now of just these made-up words, which I know is a thing of fantasy, but holy shit.
And even in addition to just made-up words, a lot of names, and none of them are normal names that you're used to, so it's harder to keep track of like the 20 new characters every few chapters.
It sure is, buddy. It sure is.
But so the email continues. I guess Roshar wasn't up to her taste. Is the comment on that? But I feel like this is the mantra of our podcast. I love big books, a big thick book with a big thick juicy plot and a fully realized world.
You love big books and you cannot lie.
I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna put that in. Whoever wrote this as a review is just gonna start popping up everywhere now.
Yep.
Help me, audience. We're taking it back, as Randall would say. The email continues. I'm beyond excited for Stormlight 5 and can't wait for your predicaments when you get to the end of Rhythm of War. The Stormlight 5 release date is the Independence Day of Finland, and it's on Friday, so I'm looking forward to binge the book during the long weekend when it comes out. Sincerely, Oli, interested to hear how you pronounce that, is what it says, and I do my best. That is cool that it comes out. My thing is, it comes out while I'm at the convention, and then I can't start reading it until I can record my reactions to it. So it comes out like the first day of the convention or something, I think. So I'm going to be trying to avoid spoilers the entire convention. Well, it's all that anyone is talking about probably. So
oh shit,
it's going to be a thing. Then a few minutes later, Oli emailed again saying, I forgot to add my 5-star Spotify review. As I'm writing this email, I realized you can't rate podcasts on Spotify's desktop app, so I had to get the mobile app and jump through some extra hoops. So they gave us the review and they sent the picture here.
Oh, that's so nice. I appreciate you going through all that extra trouble. You are an oracle.
Nice. There's one that I don't feel like we see that one too often.
No, we don't. Because I don't think it's directly talked about in the books that much. The ones we've read so far, anyway.
The name Oracle, at least, I'm pretty sure, is not actually from the books. I think it's like, that's not from the main text of the books. It may be like in the Ars Arcanum or something.
Right.
All right. Well, if anyone wants to send us an email, like Oli did, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram and X and Facebook and other places on the internet. I already talked about our Patreon. Find that too. We're all over the place. You know how it is. I've noticed, I've been listening to some podcasts recently, and people are always like, you can find our episodes here, wherever you get your podcasts. And I always feel like, I'm like, if you're listening to this right now, you know where you can get the episode. You've already gotten an episode. So I don't tend to say that, but
somebody might have dropped him a link to it, you know.
But yes, we are on Podbean and Apple and Google and wherever you get podcasts. I have tried to ensure that we are there so that you can find us. So if you're listening to this but you haven't found us yet, it shouldn't be too hard. You know, you can just go Google the Sanderlanche podcast and we'll still pop up. I wonder if probably if you just Google the Sanderlanche, then we might not be the first thing that pops up. But when I Google the Sanderlanche, there's a Reddit topic that's like, can someone please explain what Sanderlanche is to me? That I don't think that's about us. But anyway, so remember 4 chapters for next time, 17 through 20. If you're following along, read those ones. Music by Miracle of Sound. And Wasing to the Time of Next. Colo, P.S. Fasher. Crab at
You forgot your name. Don't let your spirit fade away. Amnesia, you've been through such pain. You're growing stronger every day. Amnesia.